The first time the alien queen spoke his name, the entire throne room fell silent, because no one expected a human, a retired medic from a dusty colony world, to be called forward like a legend reborn. But when she looked at him, her voice trembling between power and something painfully human, she asked only one thing. "Do you remember me, human?" 12 years vanished in an instant, back to fire, wreckage, and a promise whispered in the dark. And suddenly, the galaxy wasn't done with him after all. If this opening already hooked you, hit like, tap subscribe, and share this video with someone who loves HFY stories where humans don't just survive, they change the galaxy. It helps the channel more than you think, and it keeps these epic stories coming. Alright, let's dive deeper. Nathan Cross never expected the past to walk into his life wearing ceremonial armor worth more than his entire clinic. He'd been elbow-deep in a malfunctioning farm android, trying to convince the stubborn machine that it wasn't a cow, when the courier's shadow swallowed half his workshop. That alone told him trouble had finally found him again. The armor looked like someone had sculpted night sky into smooth curves, light sliding off every surface as if embarrassed to stay. The visor glowed faintly, and the voice that rolled through it carried enough reverb to make it sound like the courier had swallowed a megaphone. Dr. Nathan Cross. Nathan wiped grease on a shirt that had long ago surrendered to stains. Just Nathan. I don't use the doctor title anymore. And before you ask, no, I don't fix whatever alien tech you're hiding under that suit. The courier produced a crystal tablet that hummed with a pale blue pulse. Nathan recognized the seal instantly, the Sky Throne of Andralis. Every news broadcast had shown that symbol during the war. You are summoned by royal decree to appear before Queen Saraphina Vile. Does she have a lot of titles? Nathan asked. Because I got 3 more repairs today, and my client's android thinks it's a livestock. The courier paused, perhaps confused by how casually a human addressed a monarch's command. Her Majesty possesses 47 formal titles. 47, Nathan repeated. That's excessive. You'll be ready, the courier said. Transport arrives at dawn. Nathan opened his mouth, probably to argue, but the courier slid something onto the bench. It looked like an unremarkable chip. This contains 50,000 credits, the courier said. It is transferred the moment you board. 50,000. Nathan stared. That was enough to fix the failing climate control, the broken scanner, half the settlement's water system. His entire clinic could finally function like a real medical facility. The courier left him alone with the pulsing crystal tablet and the mechanical mooing of the android behind him. You've got terrible timing, Nathan muttered, pressing his thumb to the acceptance seal, even though every instinct screamed, don't go. But fate didn't care. It hadn't cared 12 years ago either. The Sky Throne. The transport that came for him the next morning ignored the laws of geometry out of what seemed like pure spite. The hull shimmered like it couldn't decide whether it wanted to be solid or a polite suggestion. Inside, gravity wobbled just enough to make Nathan question his life choices. By the time they reached orbit, the Sky Throne appeared ahead, part palace, part hallucination. Towers curve in impossible angles. Gardens floated in open vacuum without dying, and bridges crossed distances that made no spatial sense. Yeah, the pilot said casually. Everyone stares the first time. Inside the palace, a steward named Garrett guided Nathan through corridors that changed direction whenever they felt like it. Water flowed upward. Floors became ceilings. Flowers grew from shadows. And then, without warning, the corridors opened into a forest, an actual one, where the trees hummed like living tuning forks. She grew these herself, Garrett said. They sing. Right now, they're humming. Humming means she's focused. Angry trees would be unpleasant. Fantastic. But nothing compared to when the forest parted and revealed the throne room. A crystalline floor showing the planet far below, starlight suspended like dust, and a throne carved from frozen radiance itself. And standing at its center, an Andralis queen. Saraphina Vile didn't just command attention. She drew it. Her regalia shimmered like woven moonlight, her eyes a deep violet that seemed to read every secret you try to hide. She moved like the galaxy bent around her, and she was studying Nathan like she'd waited decades to see him. "Nathan Cross," she said, voice soft but carrying through the chamber like music. "Do you remember pulling someone from burning wreckage at Canthro's gate?" Nathan froze. He hadn't heard that name, not spoken aloud, in years. Not since the day he'd walked away from the military and buried every memory of artillery fire, broken bodies, desperate triage, and the moment he'd held a dying soldier's hand under collapsing metal. He swallowed. "I remember a lot of burning wreckage, Your Majesty. That battle was extensive." Saraphina stepped closer. Up close, she was nothing like the perfect, untouchable royalty from broadcasts. A thin scar traced the side of her temple, a scar Nathan recognized with a sudden, stomach-dropping certainty. "Do you remember holding someone's hand," she asked quietly, "and promising they wouldn't die alone?" The memory slammed into him. The crashed transport. The smoke so thick he could barely breathe. The young Andralis lieutenant pinned beneath debris, bleeding too fast. Her voice cracking as she apologized for bleeding on him. His whispered promise, "You're not dying here. Not today." "Wait," Nathan breathed. "That was you." "But I was told the hospital ship was destroyed. They said everyone on board." "I wasn't on it," Saraphina said. "I survived. And from the moment I could speak again, I asked for the human medic who didn't leave me to die." Nathan blinked, overwhelmed, unready for the weight of her next words. "I looked for you for 12 years, Nathan Cross." He almost laughed because the idea sounded absurd. "Why? I was just a medic doing my job." "No," she said softly, and there was something fragile in her voice, something the galaxy probably never heard from a queen. "You held my hand while fire fell from the sky. You talked to me like I was just a person, not a dying officer. You promised I wouldn't die alone, and you meant it." She stepped closer. "You were the first human who ever saw me without titles, without duty, without destiny." The throne room's crystalline trees hummed louder, as if reacting to her emotions. Nathan looked around at the impossible palace, the queen who shouldn't have survived, the galaxy that had twisted itself into knots just to drag him here. He wasn't sure what was happening, but he knew one thing. The past wasn't done with him, and neither was she. Saraphina smiled, small, sincere, dangerous in a way that had nothing to do with crowns. "Welcome to the Sky Throne, Nathan Cross," she said. "The place where debts are remembered, and fate refuses to stay buried." The palace never slept. Nathan learned that fast. The Sky Throne felt alive, its walls humming softly like a creature breathing. Every shift in mood, every whisper of tension, echoed through its crystalline bones. And on his first night there, the air vibrated with something sharp, something dangerous. It began at dinner. The hall was a masterpiece of impossible architecture. The ceiling projected an unfiltered view of the galaxy, stars wheeling slowly in patterns that made Nathan's human brain ache. Saraphina sat at the head of a long table, surrounded by dignitaries with expressions carved from polished stone. Nathan sat beside her, trying to look like he belonged and failing spectacularly. The third course arrived, soup that shimmered faintly, glowing like it had opinions. "Is this poisoned?" Nathan whispered without looking away from his bowl. Saraphina didn't glance at him. "Not tonight. Kavaris' son is sitting too close." Nathan blinked. "This is normal to you?" "Welcome to royalty," she murmured. "Eat before it grows cold, or grows legs." Not sure which. The humor helped, but tension sat under her words like coiled wire. Then the lights flickered. A blink. A second. Steady again. The entire hall stiffened. Guards straightened. A hush fell like a curtain. Saraphina rose. That shouldn't happen. Her voice was calm, but Nathan saw the slight tightening in her posture. She didn't wait for permission, just walked out of the hall with military precision. Nathan rose with her, earning dagger stares from half the table. He didn't care. They were barely in the corridor when an explosion thundered through the palace. The floor lurched. Crystal trees in nearby gardens shrieked in discordant noise. Gravity flickered, tilting the world sideways. Nathan hit a wall, caught himself, and saw Saraphina sprinting. "The throne room," she snapped. He ran after her. The palace shifted around them, walls sliding, staircases folding, doors sealing as security systems activated. Drones burst from alcoves like metallic bees. Nathan didn't have a weapon, didn't have armor, but he had instincts. Old soldier memories woke like fire. The throne room was chaos. Smoke billowed from a ruptured wall. 3 intruders, clad in armor that bent light, fought guards in desperate, brutal combat. 2 guards were already down. One twitched weakly. The other lay frighteningly still. Saraphina didn't hesitate. Her hand snapped to a bracelet, and with a silent flash, it unfolded into a blade of shimmering light, deadly, elegant, humming with lethal promise. Nathan, the wounded guard, he was already moving. The one still breathing had a scorched chest plate and plasma burns tearing across his side. Nathan slid beside him, medkit open, hands steady like they were back in the war. The old rhythm returned, pressure, sealant, diagnostics, stabilize. Movement in his peripheral vision. An intruder broke through the defensive line, charging straight at Saraphina. "Sarah!" Nathan shouted, the old battlefield name tearing out before he could stop it. She spun, bringing her blade up just in time. The attacker slammed into her guard, driving her backward. Too close. Too fast. And then Nathan saw the second attacker rising behind her like a shadow come alive. He didn't think. He acted. He grabbed the nearest object, his medkit, and hurled it with all the strength he had. The metal case smashed into the attacker's helmet with a crackling impact, disrupting the strike. Saraphina recovered instantly, pivoted, and drove her light blade through their armor with a guttural sound Nathan had never heard her make. When the third attacker tried to flee, palace security sealed every exit. He was tackled within seconds. Silence fell like debris settling after a blast. Saraphina turned, chest rising and falling, hair unbound from its elegant coil. She looked wild, alive, more soldier than queen. Then her gaze landed on the medkit lying on the floor, and she laughed. "You threw your medkit at an assassin." Nathan wiped sweat from his brow. It was within reach. Her smile widened, genuine, dangerous, grateful. Kavaris is going to have a political meltdown when he hears this. Should I be proud or terrified? Both. Together, they lifted the wounded guard and moved toward the medical bay as a storm of activity filled the throne room. Guards scrambled. Alarms whispered. Drones flickered like nervous fireflies. And Saraphina stayed at Nathan's side, never more than a step away. The observatory. Hours later, Nathan found her in the highest part of the palace, the royal observatory. The dome above showed a field of stars so sharp and vivid it felt like falling upward. Saraphina stood alone, her formal armor gone, replaced by something simpler. Her hair hung loose, framing her face in a way that made her look younger, closer to the lieutenant he once dragged from Wreckage. "The guard will live," Nathan said. She didn't turn. Good. He stepped beside her, seeing the tension she tried to hide. This wasn't random, was it? No, her voice dropped lower. Security traced the attackers to a separatist faction. They oppose human integration. They think I've grown too fond of your kind. Nathan raised an eyebrow, and appointing me didn't help. It likely triggered them. She exhaled softly, and made half my council very nervous. Nathan watched the galaxy beyond the dome. Swirls of color, stars being born, stars dying. "Why did you really search for me, Sarah?" She closed her eyes, and for a moment, the queen vanished. Only the lieutenant remained. "When you become a queen," she whispered, "you stop being a person. Everyone talks to you like you're an idea, a tool, a symbol." Her voice thinned. "But when I was dying in that transport, you talked to me like I mattered, like I was simply worth saving." He didn't speak. She wasn't finished. "You held my hand," she said. "You made ridiculous jokes about rations. You promised I wouldn't die alone." Her throat tightened. 12 years passed. I became a queen. I built alliances. I fought wars. I wore crowns heavier than armor. But I never forgot the human medic who stayed with me when the world was ending. Nathan swallowed hard. "I was just doing my job." "No." She looked at him, truly looked. "You stayed because you cared. And no one in this palace cares without expecting something in return." Silence stretched between them, warm and painful. Then Nathan said softly, "You survived because you fought harder than anyone I've ever seen." She almost smiled. "I survived because someone believed I could." The observatory lights dimmed, stars brightening overhead. For a moment, it felt like the entire palace held its breath. Saraphina stepped closer. "Nathan, I don't want you here because of debt or politics. I want you here because you're the one person who sees me as more than a throne. And you," Nathan said, "are the only queen who ever called me back into the fight." Her laugh was soft, almost a sigh. "Does that mean you'll stay?" He thought about his dusty clinic, his simple tools, the quiet life he'd built out of fear and exhaustion. Then he thought about this impossible palace, the queen who turned her entire kingdom upside down to find him, and the promise he made 12 years ago. "I'll need better equipment," he said. "My medkit is now a weapon of mass inconvenience." Seraphina's smile lit the room. "Done. Anything else?" "Yeah, a map." The queen snorted. "The palace reconfigures every hour. A map would only lie to you. Then I'll blame you every time I get lost." "Acceptable." She extended her hand. Not a queen's gesture, but the same hand he'd held in fire and rubble years ago. "So," she asked softly, "you'll stay?" Nathan took her hand. "Someone has to keep you alive." "Apparently, that's me." The crystalline trees below began humming a new melody, half harmony, half chaos, something unfinished yet hopeful. Seraphina squeezed his hand gently. "Welcome home, Nathan Cross." And for the first time since the war, standing beside the queen he once saved, Nathan felt something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose.